Hi, guys. Welcome back. My name's Amy McDonald. This is the Foolish Optimist Podcast. Today, our guest is Dakarai Larriett. He is a proud Alabama native, a son of a U.S. Army veteran. He's dedicated to serving his community and ensuring a fair justice system for all Americans, particularly as a survivor of police brutality himself. You can follow along with his campaign on social media or at his website, DakaraiLarriettforSenate.com, and you can get involved, donate, and all of that. He is running for U.S. Senate in Alabama. So, Dakarai, thank you so much. How are you? Thanks for being here.
It's great. It's been a rapid fire month with
Yes.
publicity and opportunity about what we're looking to do here in Alabama. Just all constituents.
Amazing. So what was the reason for running this year in 2026 in Alabama? I know you're from Alabama, but
So many reasons, but if I have to be authentic and really think about the why, my political why, it is because of my false arrest in 2024 when I was driving through Michigan and ultimately thrown to jail, falsely charged with driving under the influence of drugs. And many months later, for body cam and dash cam, realized that the troopers attempted to plant drugs in my car. And to this day, I'm justice from that experience and continue to fight it. We are now in a circuit court of appeals trying to hold these troopers accountable. And I just knew from that experience that to this day, the justice system was not working for me and it was not working for millions of other people. And we've got to create a system that's fair and equitable.
wow. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry that that happened to you, but I think you're right. Obviously, I think there's a lot of issues with our justice system and the policing by nature, right? There's a lot of power given to people who become police, and sometimes it is not wielded appropriately. So you are running on, obviously, a fair justice system for all. What are some of the other issues that are keeping you up at night, keeping Alabamians up at night? Maybe we could walk through some of those as well. Because
Yes.
I'm sure the justice system also keeps Alabamians up at night, if we're being
Yes,
completely honest.
absolutely. And, while my political why is rooted in social justice, I understand this is not a personal experience to everyone. And in fact,
Mhm.
even for me as a Black man, my first and only real negative experience with the police happened at the age of 42. So I want to firstly say I respect the brave women and men in uniform who keep us safe. I understand that these experiences happen, and I think those are bad actors. Now, when I think about other issues that are so important as Alabamians, I hear as I call Alabamians up and down the state, and I have done so for the last 3 months, it's around economic uncertainty. So I've been out to our agricultural parts of the state. For example, we grow soybeans here and cotton. These are crops that are exported. The tariffs are certainly going to have an impact on their business. I also hear a lot about education and funding for research, particularly here in my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, where we have the University of Alabama. And then finally, healthcare. So, as I like to say, you can't really enjoy anything in life if you're sick. So, you can't enjoy your education. You can't truly be productive economically if you are saddled with healthcare debt. So, those are the three issues we are really honing in on because we have our eye to winning this general election. We're not trying to get lost on topics that won't resonate with most Alabamians.
Right. You called Sitting Tour. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm doing. So it's funny. I think I may be the only politician who doesn't like talking about himself. So so when I go out to these communities, I'm like, 5 minutes about me, but this is about you. Like we're a year and a half before this election. What's going on in your community? Help me to understand. We have 67 counties in the state of Alabama that I have to visit.
Yeah. statewide races. I mean, it's 67 counties, what, 5 million in population?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. And just I, Alabama's a pretty diverse place as well. So I'm sure you're running into all different classes, races, religions, all of these things. So
It's so
uh,
interesting.
tell me a little bit more about maybe how you landed back in Alabama, right? Because you and I obviously spoke before this, and I know that you have lived elsewhere, but maybe walk me through some of those early days of life that got you back into Alabama.
Yeah. So I've lived many, many places, and it informs my approach to solving problems and my love for diversity. Initially, as a kid, my dad was in the Army. So we lived in California, Oklahoma, Washington State, and Germany before third grade. So I was
Wow.
always going to be someone who loved travel and loved seeing and experiencing new things. Now, as an adult, I couldn't find work in Alabama when I graduated from the University of Alabama. So that led me to New York. And I ended up spending about 15 years there. But like many of us during the pandemic, I had the flexibility of working anywhere. And that's when I purchased a home here in Alabama and just kind of fell in love with my home state again and my home city and spending time with my grandmother and my family in a way that I couldn't do when I lived in New York, that is.
I love that. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on, I just wanted a little bit more clarity. I know I'm kind of bopping around here, but we're talking healthcare, we're talking education, we're talking the economy. They're all kind of wrapped up together in one.
For
You
sure.
briefly touched on it, but what does we're going to manifest here. When you win, when you're
There's-
in representing Alabama in the U.S. Senate, what does success look like in your
Yeah.
mind for
Yeah.
your constituents of Alabama?
So there's the table stakes, which is voting on bills and voting in a way that prioritizes the citizens, not the billionaires, not the businesses, right? So the
Mhm.
vast majority of people in Alabama are everyday people. We are not a rich state. And we've got to vote that way and show up that way in the Congress. That has not been happening. And when you think about the big, beautiful bill, for example, stripping away benefits like Medicaid and SNAP in Alabama, 1 million people depend upon Medicaid. 750,000 people depend upon SNAP, also known as food stamps. So we're talking
Right.
about 20% of our population in need, in dire need, right? So that's always going to be my perspective, making sure that we're taking care of the most vulnerable populations, serving also as a thought leader and using that bully pulpit of being a senator to support things that are so important, such as inclusion, diversity, um, ensuring that our ideals and values here in the state of Alabama truly are uphill.
I like where your head's at with all of this, but you did say thought leader. And I think something that has been ingrained in the American psyche is when we're talking about these social safety networks, a lot of people see them as handouts, but in reality, it is the government's job to provide these social safety nets like Medicaid, like Medicare, like SNAP, like Social Security, things like that. And when you're talking about being a thought leader, do you have any ideas around how to like change that narrative? Because I think one of the most harmful narratives that has probably come out of the last 50 years.
Yes. Well, I think the reality is the reality. Alabama is a poor state. If we
Mm-hmm.
want to get out of that situation, we've got to invest in what?
Yes.
Education.
Education.
It takes time. It takes
Yeah.
generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a 20-year investment in a young person to get them from birth to college to
Mm-hmm.
being a productive member of society. And then the other piece that is so critical, again, thinking about Alabama, is economic opportunity. When I graduated from University of Alabama in 2004, there weren't jobs for me here. So what did I do? I took all that education, all that investment the state made in me, and then I went to New York City. That's where I started my businesses. That's where I bought my first home. So
Hmm.
we can fix this virtuous circle, this
Right.
cycle where we're educating our people. We are giving them opportunity to stay in the state.
Right.
They then are investing back in the state. We will not be as dependent on these programs, but it can't
True.
be turned off overnight. That's cruel.
Yeah.
And when I talk about the values of Alabamians, 86% of Alabamians profess to be Christian. So
Mm.
we've got to take care of our most vulnerable populations. That certainly sits within Christian values.
100% it does. Yes. Yeah. And I feel like some of the Christian values that the majority of us raised Christian or who are practicing Christianity right now, I feel like some of them have been co-opted and are not really being practiced, I guess is the word. But you talked a little bit about building your own businesses. I mean, I think pretty much everyone right now is in the same boat that you are. Obviously to a different degree, every state, every person running for US Senate, everyone is looking for local economies, right? Like you said, go to University of Alabama. There's people will say whatever they want about it, but there is no place like home, right? So like being able to either go away for college and come back and have a job and build a life there, or being able to do what you did and come back and build businesses. How do you think building local economies, what do you think that could look like in practice, right? You've
Yes.
mentioned that Alabama's the number one in car building, car manufacturing, right? Automotive manufacturing right now.
It's one of our key areas of focus. So we do have a Mercedes plant and a few others. Agriculture is big as well. But I love your question. I think if I just think about my personal experience, the biggest hurdle to entrepreneurship is that 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 year period where you're not really making enough money
Right.
to sustain yourself. And if I think about my experience, I would work my corporate job, go home and work out of my garage until
Hmm.
1, 2, 3 a.m. and then start all over again. So how do we give folks who don't have, you know, a 7 figure loan from their parents to start a business?
Hmm.
How do we give them a chance to start a business? How do we invest in them? Those are some of the problems that I would like to solve and work with the community on, so that creating businesses would ultimately create jobs and grow
Right.
the local economy, so that we can do that more readily.
Right. Right. Well, and you've already mentioned that you plan to be very much beholden to the Alabamian citizens, the constituency there, rather than a billionaire, things like that. But now we're talking about small businesses. So it's time to bring up my favorite topic, monopolies. There, I feel as though, we have been slip sliding into this, into more of a monopolistic way of seeing things. And when we talk about small businesses and them getting started and being able to compete, and even just at a local level or a statewide level, um, do you have any thoughts in your mind around like programs that would help small business owners? Like if you're voting at the U.S. Senate, when you're voting at the U.S. Senate level, obviously it's going to affect every small business owner. And I'm just wondering if you have an idea or a thought or around something like that.
Yes. Well, I would say we have resources. Sometimes they're not communicated in the most effective way. So the SBA, for example, I didn't know much about the SBA. I would say my first 10 years in business as an entrepreneur. And I just started reading about these resources and learned that the SBA is 2 blocks from my house in Birmingham. So there may not necessarily be a deficit of programs. The education around them is probably a big opportunity.
Right.
And again, it's the funding and getting people off the ground. We've got to invest in people. For example, pitch competitions, opportunities for folks to get
Right.
their ideas out there. and just give them a little leg up so they can get started. I think that's the real opportunity.
Totally. Yeah. My background is in the startup world. So I see that a lot, right? We see the pitches and we see all these different incubators and things like that. And in my mind, I've always seen a space for a small business incubator, pretty much, right? Someone who's going to help you file your taxes the first time and talk to
Right.
you if you need a S corp or an LLC or whatever you're dealing with, right? So you've mentioned being an entrepreneur once, twice, three times. I want to hear about the businesses that you have run and a little bit more about your business career and how that might translate into your next move as a U.S. Senator.
Yes. I think it's so important to have real lived experience because we have way too many lawyers, frankly, in the Congress. And if you ever dealt with a lawyer, I've dealt with many, they're not the most collaborative people.
They
I
want to
actually
win,
say combative. I would
Yeah,
say
they want to
combative.
win all the time. They have to win.
And so
Yeah.
look at our political system. People in business, I think, have to be more pragmatic. And so when I think about my career, as I mentioned, my dream job was actually here in Alabama for Saks Corp. So Saks, believe it or not, used to be based in Birmingham, Alabama.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yes. And
Okay.
interviewed for a role with them. I didn't get it. Ultimately, two of my good friends from University of Alabama did. So they went off and had a great career
Snaps.
with Saks.
Yeah.
It's okay. I still love them. But ultimately, I ended up moving to New York City and
Mhm.
I built a career in supply chain, first in the apparel industry, and then ultimately into cosmetics. So working for companies like L'Oreal and Louis Vuitton. And I wanted to create my own experience in the consumer goods space and sort of combined that with my love of animals and created a line of pet care products. And I started it in my garage, and those products are now sold around the world. I employ about 20 people in my production and all of the creative and everything required to get the products to market. And it's been an amazing opportunity and journey.
That's so cool. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing. Um, yeah, I love that. So with your background in business, I think a lot of people are thinking about the way a very certain businessman, namely Elon Musk, has been running our government recently. Um, what would be your approach? How would you, aside from just being collaborative with people across the aisle and things like that, how would you approach governing differently than running a business?
Yes, that's an important question. So the government is not a business. I want to be clear about that. Yes, it provides critical services, but the empathy, the taking care of the most vulnerable people within our society, that's not a business.
Right.
That is the true nature, I think, of government, keeping us safe. When I think about defense, right? That's not a business per se. There are skills that are transferred for sure. So when I think about the most transferable, the most important skill set, it is that collaboration. It is the goal setting. It's the project management. These are skills that I'm using and employing right now in my campaign,
Oh, yeah.
directly translating from my corporate and my entrepreneurial endeavors. Um, and just really listening to people. So listening to customers helped me to create a successful product line. Listening to the voters and the constituents is going to allow me to build a policy that works for them.
Hell yeah. Yeah. No, that's it. That's 10 out of 10. Perfect answer. No notes. Um, seriously, it's like, it seems very, very simple. And I know it's not easy in practice. I know it's harder in practice to actually implement it, but it sounds amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about Alabama itself. Let's talk about some of the past Senate races, right? So we've already established 5 million citizens. And, realistically, with the exception of Doug Jones, the majority of your senators have been Republican for quite some time.
Yes.
So, what is your plan to knock everybody's socks off, win that general, and march up to DC and start making some good trouble and change up on the Hill?
So it starts from not seeing this as Republican or Democrat. It starts from meeting people where they are and understanding what their challenges are and how
Mhm.
you ultimately can solve them. So I think about constituents, voters as customers.
Yeah.
So they may have bought another brand before, i.e., Republican, but what problem can you solve for them? And I am, again, on a listening tour talking to everybody. So when I say everybody, I mean, for example, I spoke to the Quakers 2 weeks ago. I am reaching out to gun owners. I want to speak to the NRA. I am in discussion with the Buddhist here in Birmingham, Alabama. I want to meet with them. I've spoken to farmers. These are all voting constituent groups. I don't start with, are you Republican or Democrat? I start with,
Mhm.
what can I do for you? What are you unhappy with? And what is the direction you'd like to see the state go through more effective leadership in Washington?
Like true public service, right?
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
like the actual definition of what it's supposed to be, which
Yes.
is fabulous.
Mhm.
With these large coalitions that you're going to build, obviously you're going to have a lot of different constituencies. How are you going to make sure that you're helping all of them and
Mhm.
you're solving all the problems you said you could solve? I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges of being
Yeah.
the US senator, right? Is that you have the entire state. It's not a
Right.
district, it's not localized, it's everybody.
Yes.
So,
There is always at that level going to be some degree of horse trading, right?
mhm,
And the Senate is called, or at least used to be called, the greatest deliberative body, right?
yeah.
I don't know if I would describe it as that today, not this
Today,
time,
yeah.
but with that grander scope, you've got to look at all of these different groups and sort of balance, right? It's
Mhm,
not as localized as your city council. It's not as localized as your House of Representatives leader who's representing 700,000 people. We're
right.
talking about 5 million people who are very diverse.
Mhm,
And so, to your point, some people are not going to be happy with the decisions you make. But I try to think about who's the biggest group. The biggest group are going to be working class, everyday Alabamians. And if we can approach it from that every time, I think that's the most equitable way to approach policy in the state.
yeah. That's the winning ticket, right? I also think that really does apply to all of your colleagues in the Senate as well, because
Yep.
working class Americans are the ones who really need it right now,
Yeah.
frankly. We we need a little boost. Things are getting
Yes.
weird.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you already mentioned there's two more things I want to touch on here. Let's talk about guns. You're
Yeah.
Southern. Obviously,
Yeah.
so I saw mine. I live in Brooklyn now, but I am from North Carolina. So let's talk about the Second Amendment. Thoughts?
It's the constitutional amendment. It's not going anywhere. And what we can do is ensure that access is given to those who will not become a public nuisance and a risk
Hmm.
to the safety of others.
Yeah.
That's what we can do. We can, again, use data. Look at states that are doing this the right way, safely. Massachusetts, for
Hmm.
example, has a great record in terms of homicides and minimizing them
Right.
due to guns. How do they do that? You have to get references before you get your gun. There's a waiting period, there's training. There are all these different things that you can do that are fair. They may slow down the process a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're going to get your gun.
Yeah.
So I think that is the approach that makes the most sense. We have to be realistic and pragmatic. And that's what I tell people so much is understand the field that you're playing in Guns aren't
Hmm.
going anywhere. We're not going to suddenly ban them. It's not happening. And it's just a part of our
Yeah.
culture.
Right.
Here in Alabama, we hunt. My family comes from a long line of hunters, and
Exactly.
we're not giving up our guns.
There's no way that would, like, you just can't make it happen. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate the nuance. I think you've been very nuanced on a lot of the topics we've talked about. And I think that's exactly what we need in Washington, D.C., right? Right. I think everything has gotten so left and right. And, it's very, if you're not this, you're this type of thing, no gray area and very little compromise and working
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that 86% of Alabamians are self-identify as Christians, but you've also mentioned Buddhism and Quakerism, which are news. That's news to me. I didn't know you
Yeah.
had Buddhists in Alabama
Of
or
course.
Quakers.
Yeah.
I thought Quakers were very much a Northeastern thing.
And they're incredibly liberal here in Alabama, which is interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But they've been pretty liberal, actually, when you think about the
But
history.
more so here than in the Midwest.
That's a plot twist I wasn't expecting. Honestly, I'm okay.
The more you learn is the more you know.
Yeah. Are you personally? My big question is: are you personally religious?
So my journey through faith is so interesting. I was born as a Catholic, so baptized 2 blocks from here at St. Paul's, and my family just came from a tradition of Catholicism.
Mhm.
And this was our family church right here, the cathedral in the middle of Birmingham. It's where my mom was married, my aunt. It was tradition. We converted to Jehovah's Witness. So that was incredibly conservative. So we're talking
Okay.
about no celebration of birthdays, proselytizing on the weekends, 3 meetings a week. It was intense.
Yeah.
And I left that religion in the end of college as I kind of started to see the rest of the world, become a little bit more, frankly, enlightened to possibilities around
Yeah.
religion, faith. And finally, today, I would say I most closely align with the United Methodists, but I may not end there. So,
Yeah.
so for me, I just think the most important thing is that we respect everyone else's journey, their
Right.
faith, and their religion.
Right. Right. I mean, we already talked about the Second Amendment. This is the First Amendment. For everyone who has forgotten,
Exactly.
freedom of religion is number one. Guns is later.
Right.
I raised my hands when you said Methodist because I was raised Methodist, and
Okay.
I'm no longer affiliated myself, but I like the Methodists have the like service mentality. It's like do all the good you can for as many people as you can for as long as you can, etc. So I was like woo woo Methodists. We've been talking a lot about Birmingham. There's like obviously Birmingham is probably, in my mind at least, one of the very, very, very historical parts of the civil rights movement and of the 20th century in the United States, right? Trying to frame my question here. I mean, with this very diverse group of people, with a bunch of different religions, with a bunch of different classes and races throughout Alabama, with that backdrop of Birmingham, do you feel like I feel like it's a big deal that you are a young Black man running for Congress in Alabama. Do you feel like it's a big deal that you're running for Congress?
Mm.
For Senate specifically?
Yes. I think it's been done before. So
100%.
the run has happened before. The win has not happened. So I don't know. I've been an outlier most of my life when I
Yeah.
think about professional experience. So it has not hit me yet.
Right.
Maybe as the cycle evolves, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I am. I'm currently on a kick of learning about integration and the Birmingham offensive actually, and parts of other Alabamian history as well. So that's why I'm thinking about it. Speaking of that, there's a long way to go. So how are you going to maintain your stamina, build your team? How are you going to calm down when you get overwhelmed? Running for office and also running a business. What's your plan for the next 18 months?
Yes. So thank you for asking. You're right. Frankly, this is the kind of generational strength I get from my family, from my grandparents. And you brought up our civil rights history here. It's so relevant. I think about just blocks away from here, Bull Connor was releasing fire hoses and dogs on people.
Yeah.
Not far from here, my grandparents, before they were even married, were stopped by the KKK on a date. So if that had gone the wrong way, I wouldn't even be here talking to you today. So that history pulses through my veins and it inspires me. It gives me the energy to continue this race, which is so important.
Yeah.
And to elevate the issues that I care so much about. We talked at the onset about accountability for the police, a fair justice system, and the North Star is winning this race. But no matter what, I have a year and a half now that I can really focus and bring attention to the issue. For example, I'm writing a book. It's due to come out very soon. And it talks about my experience with false arrest, my experience with the justice system, and why it needs to evolve to be the justice system that is outlined in our Constitution, that is emblazoned on our Supreme Court, where it says equal justice under law. We're not there yet. So I'm excited for this journey. And again, I think I have all the energy coming from the lived experience of my family and everything I've experienced in the last year.
I love that. Calling on the ancestors to
Absolutely.
get you. I mean, it's perfect. That's a good, I like it. Give me a plug right now for that book. When's it coming out?
Yes.
What's the title? Where can people buy it?
Yes. So the title is Don't Flush, and it's by Dakarai Larriett. It's a memoir about my experience with false arrests and our justice system. It'll initially launch on Amazon and will also be in local retailers here in Alabama, doing lots of reading. So follow us on Facebook and all the details will be available there. And in terms of timing, we're targeting Juneteenth, but we've got to get this right. We know so many eyes are going to be on the book. So we may extend that just a little bit so we can get some final details finalized.
That's awesome. That's so exciting. Okay, so we're going to run through some rapid fire questions here to wrap up.
All right.
But before we do that, you mentioned social media. If you could share your social media handles so people can follow you, and then also say your website one more time, just so people can join the campaign, volunteer, donate, all of the things.
Wonderful. Yes. So I thank you and appreciate any engagement from your listeners. So social media is going to be Dakarai Larriett. It's a very unusual name. So if you see it, it's me. And then the website is DakaraiLarriett.com, DakaraiLarriett. And we are working on our SEO. So pretty soon you'll be able to find us a little bit better. So I appreciate that and opportunity.
Well, first of all, it is a very unique name, and I think that's awesome. I think it's really important in politics to have a unique name, and I think obviously, like, you got a good vibe. You're handsome. You're young.
Well, thank you.
I told you this off air, but I'll tell everybody else. When I Googled him first, I found out that his name means happiness or joyfulness, hello, can't you big smile, and like you're like, just a happy person who is ready to serve their community. So, all right, are you ready? We have about like 7 to 8 questions. It kind of just depends. All right. Are you a coffee or a tea person?
Coffee.
Or like, okay, as I'm saying, or like Mountain Dew. I like another caffeinated drink. Okay.
So now.
What is the last book that you read?
Oh, I'm reading Passing right now.
I've heard that book is very good.
Yes,
Okay.
I saw it on Netflix and had to read.
Yeah. Are you a cat or a dog person? I know you love your pets. Yeah.
I'm scared of cats.
I've had this conversation with so many people over the last week. Cats are fickle beasts. I love them, but they are fickle.
They attack their owners. I mean,
You never know what you're going to get. It's like happy and then just like, you know. Is there a political leader that you disagree with on some issues that you very much respect? We can think on it. I was going to say, we can think on it and loop back.
I like that one. It's complex. I don't know if that's a rapid fire question.
I like wrote it down in the middle of the list, and I was like, I wrote it down, and I was like, that's not like a yes or no. That's ridiculous. But yeah, think on it.
Who's your favorite political leader? I would have said Nancy Pelosi, but
okay.
There you go.
All right. I mean, I'm sure you probably disagree with Nancy Pelosi on some of the issues.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if you had to eat one breakfast, same breakfast every day for the next year, what would it be?
Scrambled eggs and turkey bacon.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I'm hungry. All right. Do you have a favorite movie or like a comfort movie that you watch?
Talented Mr. Ripley. I just love the scenes of Italy and New York. It always reminds me of my time there. So yeah, it's a beautiful movie.
I've never seen it. This is also me just getting ideas for movies to watch.
Okay.
Last question, and this is also not rapid fire, but I think you'll have the answer for it. What's your favorite thing about Alabama?
Oh, first thing that comes to mind, besides family, which is a unique experience for me, right? Is the food. It is just such a culinary capital. So I invite everybody to come down and visit. From barbecue to Creole to European, we have it all here. So, even Mexican.
I will say that, New York City is not, there is good Mexican food, but there's just it's not as plentiful as I would like it to be. I would like more Mexican restaurants that are all really good, which is very much a first world problem. But final question, is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't already talked about?
Well, I would just say in closing, this forum is so important. So thank you, Amy, having these dialogues. Please support your politicians, your local politicians, and give them an opportunity, because it's so hard to kind of break through all of the noise that's happening, certainly this far in advance of 2026. But engage with them, help them to build their followership so that we do have individuals, diverse voices on the ticket.
That's a great closing remark. We're going to end with that. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you for following The Foolish Optimist. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, pretty much. We're going to be dropping new episodes every Wednesday, and you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. If you would like to, please give us a review, leave comments. You can also email us at thefoolishoptimistpodcast@gmail.com. If you see any really great candidates that I should be talking to, send them my way. Thank you.